And on that note, I want to welcome everybody to the world according to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein, for our Saturday night special of the world according to Ben Stein. I want to welcome everybody that's in the chat or that will be in the chat. And I want to welcome everybody that will be listening to this podcast later on. There have been a lot of you, and it means the world to us, from Hong Kong to Singapore to Sweden to Saudi Arabia and Canada. We are humbled, and of course, the United States of America. We are humbled and we are greatly appreciated. And of course, don't forget to sign up for Ben Stein's.
Appreciative.
What did I say, Ben?
Appreciated.
I think I said appreciative, but that's just the way I speak. But also, I want to remind everybody, benstein.substack.com. We're joined tonight by a regular, Gary Collins from the simplelifenow.com. Apparently a man that left all of his Rush paraphernalia.
Some of it's packed
in a different state. Is packed. It's in, your Rush paraphernalia is in transit.
No, I'm officially an Arizona resident now. So
there you are. You are a purple man. Of course, this show wouldn't be complete without actor, writer, provocateur, saint, sinner, lover, father, grandfather, mathematician, statistician, economist, lawyer, but most importantly, Dr. Benjamin Jeremy Stein.
Very, very few people, even with the most up-to-date surgical equipment, Swedish high chromium steel, years and years of medical school, can do what I can do with these hands with no medical training whatsoever.
Yes, and I know, yes, and it was brought up in the chat. We are competing with Trump tonight, but that's why we count on our podcast.
We love Trump.
That's why we count on everybody downloading the show at a separate time or watching it later. We totally understand we can't beat President Trump. I wouldn't even think about trying. Yeah. But I want to talk about something quickly because I've been thinking a lot about this. Ben and I both belong in a 12-step world, and there was a great speaker, an amazing speaker I used to hear. I used to get his speaker cassette. God rest his soul. His name was Scott R. And he's broken his anonymity. So his name was Scott Redman. And he used to, Ben and Gary, talk about when he was still drinking and stuff, when his son was a little kid and he would have nightmares. He'd come into the room and his son asked him if there is a God. And Scott, while he was drinking, said, no, there's no God. And as he got sober, he said, that was the worst form of child abuse that he could possibly do to his child, because as his son was going to bed at night and the monsters were coming and the demons were coming, he basically said to him, you're all alone. And as I look at what Ben was going on in the world right now, we have told the world, you're all alone.
I think it's worse than that, my friend, because we have told our citizens that your leaders will not lead, don't really care about America, don't really care about the Constitution, don't really care about giving our word, don't really care if the rest of the world trusts us, don't really care how our enemies are emboldened, don't really care about the lifespan of the greatest democracy the world has ever known. And that is a very depressing turn of events. And how that happened, how the media,
7 months,
the hate America media, the hate America Democrat Party, how they got together to wreck this country, and not to wreck. It's not going to be wrecked for a long time, but to get together.
I disagree.
So much damage in such a short time it's just breathtaking.
I have to. What's that word do you like to use with me?
Respectfully.
I have to respectfully disagree. I don't think it. I think we are seconds and inches, Gary Collins, from seeing the demise of this this great country. That's just my humble opinion, Ben.
I think you're so far off there. It's breathtaking. But go ahead.
We just abandoned thousands of our own citizens. I work for the State Department. I know exactly how this goes. I did multiple high threat details in the Middle East. I did them on a daily basis at one point. I'm telling you right now, any American that doesn't understand that Americans have disappeared, they've been beheaded, they've been raped, they've been tortured, You're naive. It has already happened. I can guarantee that has already happened. It happens outside of this country in foreign places where you have consulates and embassies all the time. I'm telling you, it is far worse than what you're seeing. Far worse. We created such a vacuum that not only did we abandon our own people and put them in harm's way, we put our allies' people in harm's way as well. How is this guy still president? I mean, this is treasonous if there ever was treason.
This is clear-cut treason as defined in the Constitution. Let me back up a little bit, since I'm by far the oldest of the group. In England and in the colonies, when the United States were colonies of England, then treason could be almost anything the king said it was. I mean, if you said the king looked ugly that day, that could be treason and you could be hanged for it. But when they wrote the Constitution, they narrowed the definition very, very considerably. It said treason shall consist only in aid and comfort to the enemy in time of war. But even by that incredibly narrow definition, Mr. Biden has committed treason because he has given aid and comfort to the Taliban in time of war.
And the reason, by the way, I just want to say something. The reason I always say it means so much more coming from you, because you're the least hyperbolic person I know when it comes to this stuff.
Thank you. It's very kind of you. Very kind indeed. Thank you. But it's worse than that we just walked away. We armed what we thought was the Afghan army to the teeth, so that now the Taliban may well be the most well-armed army in the world.
And more than that, Ben, did you see
top equipment?
Did you see the picture today of them doing the pose of Hiroshima? And
of Hiroshima? No, I think they're doing the pose of Iwo Jima.
Iwo Jima. I'm sorry, and I pronounced that incorrectly. And
quite a big difference.
Yeah, the pose of Hiroshima would be
of Iwo Jima. They did the pose of Iwo Jima. I'm sorry, I do make mistakes, and at that time I will openly admit it was a mistake. And they were openly mocking us with the flag. I mean, and with our uniforms.
They're terrible people, and we shouldn't be surprised. And very, very bad people. And as I say, I think they are now incredibly well armed. They say, I keep hearing on the radio, that there are still pockets of resistance to them in the Panjshir Valley, wherever that is, and I think there's a place called the Hindu Kush. I don't really know it very well. I don't know the area very well. And there are enemies still, but they're not going to be anywhere near as well armed or well motivated as the Taliban. And we have just been pouring incredibly good quality arms into them, knowing they were going to be turned over immediately to the Taliban. I keep saying this important point. It's a legal point, but I think although you and Gary are not lawyers, I think it's incredibly important. In law, you are held to intend the logical and necessary consequences of your actions.
Yes.
So even if they didn't write out a blueprint and say, we're now going to turn over the best quality arms in the world to our mortal enemies, and then we're going to skedaddle out of there, they intended it.
And to Gary's point, by the way, the Pentagon has confirmed that Americans are being harassed and beaten.
Well, that's better than being
that's
beheaded.
bullshit.
That's right. That's, if they're saying harassed and beaten, I would assume that means beheaded and murdered or raped and tortured. Gary Collins. And Gary brought up the point to me where he said to me, Ben, he's willing to go. He's willing to go.
Very, very brave man. And I actually talked to my friend John Quinones today. And he said he wishes he were back there fighting, and they're a lot braver than I am. I don't want to fight the Taliban. I have no knowledge of training in warfare, and I'm scared.
Gary, can I ask you a question? But I understand that, Ben, and I'm in the same boat as you. You and I are not in the trenches, but Gary is and John Quinones are trench people. Is that a logistic possibility? And I understand sending a shadow force over there.
Yeah, we would have to go in through other countries and go in, but I firmly believe there's a very good chance This will have to be rectified by private entities of the United States.
But let me ask you a question, Gary, since I know you know this subject very well. How would we rectify it? We sent in our army, and our army couldn't beat them. How are a group of private contractors going to beat them?
To rescue the American hostages.
To rescue.
I see.
To bring
as a rescue
out.
mission.
Yeah, and just trust me, I know our fighting forces really well, and the reason we're not winning is because the lion's in the cage. Has nothing to do with our capabilities. Our soldiers are being hamstrung by a completely impotent and incompetent administration. That's
an administration that I think wanted us to lose, and I think
100%.
I think so.
Tragic thing is we have an administration that does not believe in the Constitution, because they have been working hand in glove with certain social media sites to demolish the First Amendment. The fact, and Judah has brought this up repeatedly, and he's totally right to bring it up, that the fact that the Taliban still is on Twitter and Mr. Trump is not, is unbelievable. It's like taking FDR off and letting Goebbels be on.
That's great. You're completely right.
Well,
and yeah, go ahead, Mary.
Here's what I think, honestly, and I agree with you. I've always said this, even when like people like Joe Rogan, who I don't know if he would defend Jack Dorsey anymore. I called Joe Rogan out on that. I flat out lit up and said, do not defend this guy. Jack Dorsey is an asshole. He's a loser.
He's a subversive. He's a subversive.
He lies every time he opens his mouth. He's full of shit. Zuckerberg's full of shit. There's a contingent in this country that firmly does not like America. It doesn't like what America stands for. It doesn't like the hardworking Americans that make this country go. They look down upon us. And I think we're in a battle against good versus evil. I truly think that's where we're at.
For sure. That unfortunately is true day by day all over the world and all over the United States But to have people who are actual subversives.
But here's to prove your point, Ben.
I don't think we've had that before.
But Ben, here's to prove your point. So you keep on saying who's running the country, and he brought up two people, Dorsey and Zuckerberg.
I don't know who Dorsey is.
He runs Twitter. He's the owner of Twitter. But
I thought Dorsey was a big band leader from the 40s and 30s.
That was Tony Dorsey, wasn't it?
Tommy Dorsey.
Close enough, since it was 80 years ago. But to bring up the point, and a lot of people missed this in Biden's whatever that thing he did the other day when he got in front of that group of people. He brought up that he was in communication with the New York Times, the Washington, and nobody spoke about this.
Oh my God, this was so horrible.
It's something that nobody has spoken about, that he was in touch with the three major as you call them, branches of government to get their people out.
Yeah.
And it was such a telling thing, Ben, that he brought up frightening thing that he brought up those three papers that he was working together, that they were the most important people to get out of it again at Kabul and Afghanistan.
Not people who have been feeding people, not people who have helping girls learn to read or get them so they don't get raped as soon as they get to be 14 or 12 or whatever age it is. Not people who are getting inoculations to people who are scared of getting deadly diseases, but friends of his in the media. Yeah. It's really scary.
I'm glad you caught that, though.
It's very
nobody brought it up.
Well, okay, thank you. Very much. The whole thing is Stalinist. I think I've told you, my dear friend Judah, I have a very smart friend who's a physician, psychiatrist, very smart. He says it's worse than Stalinism because we not only have the Stalinist bosses in the government, but the Stalinist movements on the ground, such as Me Too, which is a Stalinist movement. So it's really right out of Orwell.
No, you're completely right. As Gary brought up, you have organizations like Twitter, and when you think about it, and Facebook, obviously there are quite a few billion people on these networks. And look no further than we brought up, Ben Stein and Gary, that they have allowed the Taliban, and Trump is still banned.
How do they even explain that? I mean,
and Trump is still banned. And Trump is still banned.
You follow this better than I do, Judah. If someone asks the people who run Twitter, why are you banning President Trump and allowing on the Taliban, what is their answer?
They give some jackass answer that who's going to question them. It doesn't matter. They could bend, and I mean that. I'm not just saying that. They give some ridiculous answer, right, Gary? That nobody confronts them on.
Yeah.
And there's no repercussions, Ben, because
Trump's a hateful racist, but the Taliban and Al Qaeda are not.
Well, that
is their opinion.
No, please don't say that.
I'm Ben. That is their opinion. That is.
What do you mean? So these people who would on sight behead a Jew or a Christian on sight,
they don't care.
They're not racist.
Did you see what the LA Times said today about Larry Elder? He's blackface in a he's
a white supremacist in blackface.
Oh my God. Well, the LA Times has been garbage for a very, very long time.
But my point being is, Ben, they could say whatever they want. There are no repercussions. You get more.
The LA Times said that in an editorial.
Yeah.
Oh no, wasn't it on the front page?
I believe it was on the front page.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, wait a second. Surely they don't have editorials even in the LA Times on the front page.
No, I believe it was.
No, it wasn't an editorial.
But I believe if somebody could check it out, please. I believe it was.
We get the LA Times. I'll look at it.
I believe it was. Which I don't understand why you support that organization anymore. But on that note, I don't either. If you just tuned in, you are listening to the Saturday Night Special of The World According to Ben Stein. I want to welcome everybody that's listening in the chat. We know they're competing against President Trump in Alabama. We also want to thank you.
Sweet Home Alabama.
Sweet Home Alabama, yeah. One of the most brilliant songs ever written, ever written. And at Watergate, in
Birmingham,
they love the governor.
Now, we all did what we could do. Now, Watergate does not bother me. Does your conscience bother you? Tell me true.
Woohoo. And I want to remind everybody to keep downloading that podcast, give it that 5-star review. We're joined tonight from thesimplelifenow.com, Gary Collins, and of course, America's humble servant, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. The next thing I do want to get into, because I think it's extremely important, because we talk about terrorism and we talk about Ben Stein, their hostages over there. And I'm sick of this thing of we can't get people out or this or that, because for people that aren't familiar, in 1976, an Air France plane was hijacked and it was taken to a different country. It was taken to Uganda, where they separated the Jews.
Wait a second, just a second, sir. Are you sure that was not an El Al plane?
Yes, I'm 100% sure it was. Okay. El Al has never been taken hostage. They have never had the closest anybody has ever come to attacking an El Al or an Israeli plane was the Lod airport. Okay. But my bigger point, yes, it was Air France, Ben.
Okay.
And they separated the Jews, and and Israel didn't know what to do. They were in a major quagmire. They had no world support, and they had two ideas. One was to take over the whole Uganda, and the second was to send in soldiers and to rescue the hostages. It was a win situation if they won, and it was the biggest loss at Ben Stein if they had lost. And they didn't give in to terrorism. They couldn't meet the demands, and they did it. They went on a mission led by Benjamin Netanyahu's older brother, Yoni, who is the only person that died, a soldier that died in the mission, and two hostages. And they went in the middle of the night and saved all the terrorists.
No. They saved all the
captives. They saved all the hostages. And my point being, Ben, is it was something that nobody thought could be done. And I'm talking about 1976. They took 3 planes. They flew thousands of miles. They didn't even know that they didn't even know where they'd be able to refuel. It
was beyond belief. They also found automobiles They were exactly
yeah.
like
They took
facsimiles
Mercedes, yes,
of the kind of cars that Idi Amin
mean,
drove,
yeah.
and they landed them at an edge of the airport, and then drove in with Ugandan flags on the fenders as if it was Idi Amin come to visit it. It was absolutely incredible.
It's just an incredible mission. But Ben, and it changed the way we look at we deal with terrorism. Obviously, at that point, Israel was saluted for the mission being successful, but had it not been, and the reason I'm bringing this up, Ben, is because we're America. There's nothing impossible for us, and we gone to the moon and we've done some of the most spectacular things God has ever that's ever
allowed
been done.
Man to do.
And it's the fact that we have 7,500 at least American hostages is still in Afghanistan right now.
Sir, I'm not sure that I would exactly describe them as hostages. I think that
well, they can't leave.
I don't think they're rounded up in a pen somewhere.
If you can't, Ben, if you can't, Ben, if you can't leave,
they're fugitives, I would say. But anyway, your point is, of course, true. Had we really wanted to save them, we could have. A very smart friend of mine said to me today, how could the United States of America lose a war in the 21st century? That was a very smart question. Very, very, very smart question. Because we didn't have the willpower to win, and we don't have the willpower to get out our people. I think the British and the French have much more willpower about this than we do. Mr. Biden, who is really the puppet for Mr. Obama, doesn't really want America to get away with this. He would just as soon see the Americans killed. He doesn't really like America. He's never liked America. Because I think what Mrs. Obama said when Mr. Obama was nominated was really the essence of the way these people feel.
Yes, and Gary, I want to bring up something else because it's this. And Ben has said it. I mean, Trump I believe at least 4 people from his administration. I don't know why they go nameless. From the generals or whoever it was have come out and said he planned on leaving at least 800 troops on the ground.
800. That's very funny.
No. But Ben, there was no. I think it's safe to assume this goes down very differently if Trump is there and if Biden is there. I think
800.
No, I know. I understand, but it's still.
Jeff, could you get me my medicine, please?
Ben, but we needed no troops, as I brought up before the show, for Kim Jong-un to be relegated to nothing.
We have an awful lot of troops in South Korea. We have 38,500, and they're very, very well armed. And we have the 6th and 7th fleet over there. But this point is, and it's glad you brought up Korea. Very glad you brought that up. At the beginning of the Korean War, you guys are too young to remember this. But at the beginning of the Korean War, the North Koreans, communists, of course, pushed the U.S. and the South Koreans back to a little corner of the southeast peninsula, part of the peninsula of Korea. It would have been easy for Truman to say, okay, you know what, we're leaving, bye. This is going to be too difficult. He said, no, we are a great power. We don't get pushed around by piss ants like North Korea. And he fought and fought and fought. MacArthur went in there, did a very brilliant behind the lines landing at Incheon on the other coast. And it was a debacle for the communists. Then MacArthur advanced all the way to the northern border of North Korea. And I think was going to go too far. He was going to really frighten the Chinese communists. So they invaded and pushed the U.S. back again towards Busan. But then the U.S. pushed back again because Truman, who had many faults, he was not a perfect guy. He had balls, and he said, we're not going to be defeated by the likes of North Korea, even with Russia and China helping North Korea. We're not going to be defeated. If Mr. Biden had said, we're not going to be defeated by a group of ragheads, we would not be in a squandary.
And I think that's my bigger point. I wasn't just bringing up the fact that he was going to leave 800 troops. I know that's nothing. But Gary, there was a fear that Trump instilled in these people that, there's no better way of beating crazy with crazy. And Donald Trump exuded crazy. He exuded that you never knew if you pushed him what he would do. Well,
and when it comes to Middle Eastern terrorism and being around some of these people, they're cowards. They're sociopathic serial killers who prey on the weak. Once you show force, they cower and hide. They truly are the definition of weak-minded bullies. And that was the thing too, is we had beat them back. Once Biden came in, it just started happening. Town, province, city, they started coming back in one by one by one. And not only that, but Biden proved he was not telling our allies what he was doing or what his plan was. Trump was working with the allies and we had a plan.
Yeah, he literally lied to them, Ben Stein, last week at the G7, right? With the G7.
He said, we've got a plan and we're all set. Don't worry about anything.
Yeah, the plan was abandon everyone. It was a great plan.
Well, we know him to be very dishonest. We know him to be surrounded by people who are very dishonest. The luckiest thing Mr. Biden has going for him at this point, I would say,
is the stock market.
No, it's his people would not like to see him leave office because Kamala and the worst human being on the planet, Nancy Pelosi, are next.
Ben, I disagree with that. And I've heard that argument with the weak-kneed Republicans time and time again, and I'm sick of their shit. Get rid of him, do your job, and expose them for who they are. They're afraid to do their job. That's why I get so pissed off at Republicans.
Sir.
How could she do any worse? She doesn't even show up. She's not even around.
Kamala Harris, I think, is thoroughly worse, but I could be wrong.
But but you're comparing.
Pelosi is really, really bad.
Yeah, no. This is you're both bringing up a really good quagmire that we're in, right? I mean, you're right. But Ben, you've basically said you've accused Biden of treason. You've accused him of
an opinion. I'm not a prosecutor.
Well, but you are a lawyer and you are a brilliant person and you know the law. So I trust your opinion.
My wife's the brilliant one.
And so we have this. You get Harrison, and I think to the bigger point, it would show you what a joke, what a sick, twisted joke. This Democrat leftist party is. So it's like, because they could hide Biden. They've been hiding Harris, but Biden's a lot easier to hide. Harris, first of all, Ben, how ironic is it that she's in Saigon right now? She's going to be, where is she?
She's on her way to see the Saigon or Hanoi, I forget which.
Yeah, could they not have thought of a more ridiculous time?
No, this is quite clever of them. Because for people who don't remember history, let's see, the last time we had a situation where we were being pushed around, that was Saigon. Now she's going to Saigon. Maybe they think we're going to defend Saigon. By the way, this is very much like what happened with Nixon and Ford and the Democrat Congress and the communists in Vietnam. I've just said this before with respect. I'll say it again with great respect. We had an agreement with the communists in Vietnam. If they went south of a certain line in South Vietnam, we would bomb them. They said, we don't believe you. Nixon said, oh, really? And he bombed the hell out of Hanoi and Haiphong. They said, okay, now we believe you. Then the Democrats kicked Nixon out. Democrats with the help of a lot of, to use your phrase, weak-kneed Republicans. And they sent Mr. Nixon packing, and Mr. Ford took over. He's a great guy. He said, okay, I'll bomb you. The Democrats in Congress voted to not allow us to do any reprisals on the communists if they violated the truce. They voted to make it illegal to do anything to defend Saigon. Same thing here. Democrats basically making it illegal to defend our ally.
I would like to see some of these people at the State Department who come back who are trapped and hear their opinion of their Democratic leaders now. I'd like to hear it. I really would. If these people come back and go, oh, no problem, he's just doing his job. I firmly believe that the party is completely, utterly corrupt and lost.
Well, I think they are. Sir, with great respect, you really don't think they're utterly corrupt?
I already do, but I'm just saying if their own people come back in, if that was my party and they left me over there and I got back, you better hide.
You're speaking, I said you're speaking logic, and you can't speak logic to insane people. And I just want to get to this quick story that was just reported. There's an American mom trapped by the Taliban. And she said, Ben, because, to Biden, everybody could get to the airport. She said there are at least 20 checkpoints between her and the airport. The State Department admitted today, Ben, that they were hacked.
Sure were.
It goes way beyond that, sir.
Yeah.
If I may tell you, our friend, Mr. Quinones, who I wish had been on this show, and maybe he'll be on a soon to be on show, said the Taliban has this system, and I think you brought
this up to me.
Yeah, it's called HIDE. So I forget what those initials stand for, but they can put it up to your face, and they can tell if you're in our records as a friend who's been helping us. And the enemy now has this and is using it to ferret out our friends and kill them. They're not.
They're already doing it. They're hanging them.
By the way, they're not putting them in prison and finding a lawyer for them. They're just killing them right on the spot.
Gary, are you familiar with this system?
Yeah, we created it. It's a biometric system that we created.
HIDES.
The State Department created it, and I bet it was in conjunction with the CIA, NSA, and other things. And they let it out of their hands. And yes, the Taliban has it, and they are effectively hunting down every foreign national that helped the U.S., worked for the U.S., interpreters, you name it. There's different groupings of foreign nationals who work for the State Department and different agencies. And it's an incredibly dangerous job. And we couldn't have done our job without them. They are incredibly valuable.
They're very brave.
They're brave. I have people I work with who are now dead. They were killed. And so I'm telling you, I did not sleep the first night because I knew what was happening to these people and what was going to happen to them. And the fact that this administration does not even blink an eye. And the problem I have too is no one's talking about Benghazi. These are the same people who abandoned our people in Benghazi, and they covered it up the exact same way almost. And remember that we were ready to go roll. We had our 82nd Airborne, I believe. We had our special forces ready. We could have been there. And I can't remember how many hours. It was all ready to go. They said, stand down.
Mrs. Clinton,
don't get them.
Mrs. Clinton stopped it.
She stopped it.
Yeah. No. It is an extraordinary contempt for the lives of Americans and America's friends. When I see it, and I think about the people who've led this country in the past, when I think about the wives and children of the men who lie at Arlington National Cemetery, women too. And I think of the contempt that Mr. Biden has shown them, the contempt that the Democrats in Congress have shown them. What, I hate to say this, but you and I, we all know this is true. If this were a Republican president, the Republicans in Congress would be after his hide. We know that. But because it's the Democrats, they have iron party discipline. They don't go after their own.
So here's my question, since we don't have jelly beans for another 3 years and a quarter. And Steve Bannon, I was reading about this today, but I had thought about this as Trump has his little cabinet meetings in, how do you pronounce it? Bedminster? In
Bedminster
in New Jersey. the idea of having a shadow government. We know that John Kerry broke what was it, the Logan Act with dealing with Iran. I would find it very interesting, Ben Stein, I'm just speaking hypothetically, of course, if Trump were to set up a shadow government and see who goes with him. And
but it's a fine idea. I think it's a great idea. The problem is the major powers in the media would ignore him or make fun of him. I mean, something you said earlier tonight reverberates in my old brain. The idea of sliming Larry Elder, a genuinely great man, the way the LA Times did today, shows there's no depth. There is no depth to which the media will not sink to slime people who stand up for America.
Right.
Well, so Ben, you have to love though that the left, that their black people are their black people. If you're a black person and you're not on their side,
right,
you're a racist, bigot, sexist.
Uncle Tom. Yeah.
I just can't understand how any normal-minded human being thinks that's okay.
Well, because they are party machinery. They're machinery of the leftist / Stalinist anti-American party that is now known as the Democrat Party. It's very sad.
Ben, do you think that's part of the problem, though, that these are a bunch of old communist sympathizers, and some are? Do you think that the party is part of the useful idiot syndrome, or do you think that they truly are communist at heart and hate America and want to destroy this country?
I think they hate America and want to destroy this country. The ones I talk to, and there are not many of them, I'm sorry to say, most of them are in my family, but certainly not my wife, are really
would be rough sleeping.
That would be rough. Well, my wife, they are really do hate America. I can remember many years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, a very, very close relative of mine said she doesn't know how much longer she can live in, as she put it, this racist country. Now, this is a woman who lives in a very nice part of New York. Her husband earned millions a year. There's no privilege that was unavailable to her. But that's what I don't think she had ever lifted a finger for the African Americans of this country. This fat old man you're seeing with these hands demonstrated and worked and was beaten, put in jail for demonstrating for black people in Cambridge, Maryland, my home state. She never lifted a finger. She was at Bergdorf Goodman.
Wait, Ben, what was Joe Biden there too?
I don't know. Probably so. Probably he was
arrested.
Of course,
he might have been arrested. He might have been arrested 3 or 4 times.
He was at Woodstock. He actually performed. Was he at Woodstock? Yeah, he performed there.
Yeah. Star Spangled Banner. Was it Jimi Hendrix?
He performed in his band Joe and the Fried Chicken. I mean,
that's
why?
Very good.
I mean, why not? I mean, he's plagiarized and lied about everything else,
but very good fried chicken.
I got to say something that's reverbed a little bit with me is the fact that when I brought up Trump starting a shadow government, you didn't say, Judah, you're nuts, and Judah, you're crazy. You just said that the media wouldn't pick it up. But my interesting question to you would be that you have people around the world right now. You have France and you have these countries that are looking at Joe Biden right now going, to hear him say it, they love him and they respect him, as he said in the press conference the other day, they're all on board together. But it would be an interesting thing to watch Trump calling these world leaders, getting in touch with these world leaders that obviously he can get in touch with, and seeing where it goes, Ben, because I don't, you're right. 2 months, I don't see the government going down as it would in other countries. We discussed this before the show. Every other Democrat country would have had snap elections. The parliamentary system would have.
The premier has to call for the snap election,
but not in England and not in the
opposition,
UK.
No, the opposition can't call for it.
I didn't think that you could
look it up.
You're probably you could be you're 100% correct, probably, but wouldn't there would be reverberations in their own parties?
I think if Trump did it. It's fine with me. I'm sure that the American Spectator and American Greatness would cover it. I'm sure we would discuss it on this show. But the media in general, I think, would ignore it, sneer at it, make fun of him. I mean, the media likes nothing more than to make fun of people who are sensible and make sound comments on behalf of America. The media, they're not really our friends at this point, not at all.
No.
My question, though, is would other countries take him seriously, Gary?
I don't think they would.
No, come on.
And Biden would get on the phone with them, or he'd have somebody else get on the phone with them, a black woman. That would help a lot. Lesbian black woman would get on the phone with them and say, this is all a racist, anti-gay plot, and please don't be part of it.
It's all part of climate change. The whole thing.
That part is so great. That part is so great. Was it CBS or NBC that said?
I think it was CBS.
Said that the climate change had helped the Taliban to win. There's no limit to the imbecility, law, and lying of these people. And I'm sorry to say, the gullible idiocy of our viewers.
Not our viewers.
None of ours.
Our American.
None of ours. Right.
Our American.
Well, I would like to see one of those viewers watch our show, and I'd like to see what the rebuttal would be, because I just absolute lack of logic. I don't understand it.
They would make up something. It's funny. I was telling Judah, and maybe I mentioned this the other day. It's possible. I was up late watching Perry Mason, the best show in history, and I was looking up. Somebody sent me a text saying, "Look yourself up on."
No, it wasn't me, but yeah, you brought it up. You brought it up on the show, but go ahead.
They just had a whole made up biography of me. It was just like,
was it Wikipedia?
Like, yeah, Wikipedia. It was as if I had been the first man to walk on the moon. I mean, the things they said about me were just incredible. It's just amazing.
Maybe they messed up. It was supposed to be Joe Biden's, but they transposed the name somehow.
Right.
Okay, so as if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein, and want to welcome everybody to our Saturday Night Special. The people are watching, the people are going to listen later. We're with Gary Collins from thesimplelifenow.com, and download his podcast. It's an exceptional podcast.
God bless you.
Even though he's only had me on once.
It's all coming. I'm working on it.
Yeah,
I'm trying to build a studio.
Gary, with all due respect. And of course, America's humble servant, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. And the next thing I really want to talk about is to deviate, because I think it's very devious too, is I want to get to this COVID thing a little bit with the third jab. I know people that have gotten the third jab already in our country.
Already?
And Ben, they in the beginning, it was to just to flatten the curve a little bit. Just to flatten the curve with the hospitalizations. And we were going to have the COVID, we were going to have the vaccine that we were pretty much led to believe was the cure, we weren't going to get it again. It was the greatest thing in the world. And now scientists, you hear doctors and scientists on other networks saying, well, that really wasn't the case with the vaccine, Ben. We always knew that another variant was going to come. And all of a sudden, it's like this constant moving, of these goalposts of our gullibility and of what we're willing to do. And I don't think I'm going to get the third jab, Ben. I got to be honest. I know I'm not, to be honest with you, Ben, because I don't believe a word they're saying.
Well, a close friend got the third jab, and she had a very bad reaction to it. But the bad reaction only lasted about 72 hours. So there you are. I don't know if I'm going to get the third jab or not. My doctor recommended I not get it until we had a couple of months of seeing people's experience with it.
It's a smart move.
Yeah, I think that's an extremely smart move. But going back to the bigger point, Ben, is there this lies that they're coming? I mean, it's like we have been so duped.
I know.
And now supposedly the FDA is coming out and saying it's on Monday or Tuesday, the FDA is coming out and saying that it's okay to get it, that they recommend it. But Ben, at this point anymore, does anybody trust? I mean, the lack of trust that we have, that they're telling any sort of truth about any of this. I mean, we haven't had a commission yet. Don't you think it's time we have a commission, Ben?
Absolutely. To me, it's astounding that these cretins under Nancy Pelosi can have a commission with thousands of FBI people involved to study sightseers at the Capitol January 6th, and they can't have a commission about COVID or a commission about the fall of Kabul. That's amazing. I mean, the whole government has just become a tool of one party and the left wing of that party, which I guess that's pretty much all there is of it now. And why aren't we studying more about this? I mean, couldn't we find out more about where it came from? Couldn't we find out more about what kind of treatments are effective for pandemics? I mean, it's funny. I do all the grocery shopping in the Stein family, so I'm around grocery stores a lot, or really, really a lot. And I keep thinking to myself, why are we all wearing masks? What good does that do?
Well, right. And they said it. They've said it out loud. I mean, I heard it. I mean, many doctors say it out loud. It's to make you feel better about yourself. No. That you think that wearing the mask is being helpful, even though they came out the other day and they said there is absolutely nothing, the people with the plastic shields across their faces that were walking,
those are the best.
That were walking around like they were in an assembly plant, and they said, Ben, there is absolutely nothing those things did.
Yeah, well, this is a scary thing. I mean, this is a very scary thing that we are being told this. And as I've said on our wonderful program many times, to be unable to see our fellow citizens' faces is very serious. It's a very serious attack on freedom of assembly and on free speech. Because to see a person's face is to know an awful lot about him or her that you will not know by seeing just the top of his forehead.
Well, Ben, the only problem is if you wait a couple months to get the third jab, you might have to get the fourth one after.
Oh, sure.
You might, or fifth. You never know.
Well, how many things are in the Greek alphabet? How many?
I don't know. That's a good question.
As many as there are. That's as many jabs as we're going to get.
They can have Delta 2. They can have Delta 3.
Well, have you guys noticed someone pointed this out? They're no longer keeping statistics for pneumonia and the flu. You can't find it.
Because they don't want to show that COVID is much less than pneumonia or the flu. It's similar to what we're having here in California, our beloved California, where you might have just heard a gang of motorcyclists racing by near my house. And that is that they have stopped having the scholastic aptitude test for admission to our University of California. Why do you think that is? Because it would show the racism implicit in the test because the Black kids score so poorly on it. So therefore they simply eliminate the evidence.
So Gary, going back to this, we have a year and a half, we have zero data. We've been shown zero data. We've been shown zero. I mean, really, we've been shown zero data. The only data we've been shown is supposedly how many people have died from it, but we haven't shown at this point. A year and a half is a long time. They created a vaccine within a year and a half, tons of drugs to help out with COVID in a year and a half, but we can't get anything. We can't get anything in the House of commissions of showing us what we actually did. Did this work?
Or what
we did?
Or what it is? Or what it
or
is?
what it, yeah.
Or what it
Well,
is.
we pretty much know where it came from. I mean, that's no secret. They just don't want to come out and put it in an official report because there's a whole lot of government officials involved who would go to prison, and all their buddies too, because it shows the money trail. It shows who did it. As a former investigator, it's pretty obvious to me where it came from, who's involved, and it's a cover-up game. And now my problem is there are far more breakthrough cases. I know people right now who got the vaccine who are now testing positive for COVID. I want to know though. I want to know those numbers. I want to know those. And they're hiding those because they know not only that, but when you show a resistance to a vaccine, you're going to have a whole lot more stronger viruses come out of that than natural immunity, more than likely, because it's mutating and it's mutating to a vaccine. Then it becomes vaccine resistant, just like we learned with antibiotics. You overuse it too much and it doesn't kill it, then it becomes strain resistant, which is far worse. That's my problem, is they could be creating an absolute petri dish of destruction by forcing people to do this. I'm the firm believer of it is what it is. You got to let it run its course.
We all believe it is what it
well,
is.
no, you got to let it run its course. There's no way you're going to vaccinate your way out of this. It's not going to happen. You let the people who want to get vaccinated. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you want to shut down your business, shut down your business. But mandatorily forcing people to do all these things is not working. And if the Democrats think they can push this long enough to get to 2022, they're out of their mind, because people are at wit's end and they're getting pissed off.
Well, I think, but you have really touched upon the essence, the psychological essence, which is they just like to control people. I mean, that's
true.
That's very true. This is really all about, the love of control. I mean, they could find something else to control us about. They're using this insanely trivial incident in the Capitol as a way of making people think that we're under assault by the Ku Klux Klan, and people are believing it, and they're allowing the government to do all kinds of seizures and put people have been convicted of nothing.
Well, do you realize they ruled on the shooting of Babbitt, Ashley Babbitt, and no report was released.
Wow.
Yeah,
no report.
And we know who the cop was, and he's totally exonerated, and he's totally good to go. I mean, can you imagine, Ben, if this was
a black person being shot by a white cop?
Imagine. Would have been burning buildings.
Right. Well, the Capitol would have been burnt down by now, and it would have been okay. Because they're
just expressing themselves. It's not a big deal.
That's exactly right. But Ben, going back to the bigger point of control, and you said it with the climate change thing. That didn't work, right? So
it is working.
No. If you look at when most people vote, where climate change goes into the equation of important things, it's a 2 or 3% max. It never.
I did not know that.
Yeah, the messaging of climate change being the scariest thing in the world never did. But if you look at COVID, Ben, that 60-70% of people, that's on the top of their mind. So they found the new religion to stick to, which is COVID, and they're not going to let the religion of COVID go until it stops working. I don't see as Gary brought up, 2022 might be the measurement to see if that still works.
Well, I think that they have another religion too, which is the total lie of systemic racism. I mean, that's really a very wicked lie, because COVID is not really a moral matter, whereas systemic racism is very much a moral matter. And the idea that they are still peddling that, and that the media lets them get away with that wicked lie, is really, really dangerous and frightening, because they can do anything to us if they cloak it in the guise of fighting systemic racism. Systemic racism is a non-existent, fake, nothing thing. Yes, in the past, racism in this country was a terrible thing, no doubt about it. Now gone, but we're still peddling.
What did they call Larry Elder today again? They said he's a black. What is it, Gary?
A white supremacist in blackface.
So Ben, you're a white supremacist in whiteface.
I am in favor of one race, which is the human race.
I'm kidding around. Obviously, that's what they would call you for opposing them and coming up with a critical with an actual.
No. I know that I would be considered a terrible racist for thinking that some races work harder than others, that there's a reason why some races are more successful than others. That doesn't happen by accident. Of course, I'd be called a racist for that. There's no doubt about that.
And by the way, what's funny is somebody brought up and they said systemic. Most people don't even know what that means. And it reminds me of that word. And if anybody's ever seen The Princess Bride, when Wallace Shawn character keeps on going, it's inconceivable. And he says it countless times. And Mandy Patinkin finally says to him, do you even know what that word means? You know, and that would be the funniest thing, Ben, if you were ever to ask one of these people, do you even understand do you know what systemic means?
They wouldn't know, and they wouldn't know what racism means. People have no idea what racism is. I'm old. I know what racism is.
You're not old, you rode hard.
You're experienced.
I've seen racism at work against African American people, against us Jews, a really lot. I mean, I've seen my best friend when I was a child admitted to a school I wanted to go to. She was Episcopalian. I was kicked off the list because I was a Jew. I've seen that. I've seen the girl I wanted to take to the senior prom in high school not allowed to go, supposedly because I was a Jew. I mean, I've seen lots of that. It's not that it was unheard of. It's gone now. It's not been systemic for a long, long time.
Well, Ben, it's funny because they use systemic racism, and I always laugh because by definition, they are a part of the systems that they are calling systematic. They run the systems.
Well put. That's very good. That's very, very good. That's very good. That's the best thing you've said since we started our show. That's really good. Yeah.
Oh, God damn. That must have meant everything was really stupid.
But if I may say so, another very good thing, if I may respectfully say so, very respectfully, is I love the comment that I see coming up online and in various other places that it doesn't matter. No one could ever conquer Afghanistan. It's too wild. It's too crazy. There are no roads. You can't conquer Afghanistan. And I keep saying, well, wait a minute. Somebody just did conquer it.
Yeah.
So
it's very
you bring up a great point, and we got into this a little bit the other night. Israel shouldn't be in existence,
right?
If you look at through history, what everybody said,
right?
Israel should not be standing and be the beacon of peace and prosperity and hope and
scientific genius and health advancement.
That they are, Gary. If everybody said, I mean, they should be dead over and over and over and over again. And I just wanted to say one last thing. So, you know, Ben, and you'll remember this, I was thinking to myself today, because I was thinking about Trump a lot, and I was thinking about Ariel Sharon, a great, God bless his soul, one of the great generals in Israeli history, saved Israel. Absolutely.
Crossed the Red Sea and went around to the south and west of the Egyptian army and won that war.
Saved Golda Meir's ass, and
with Nixon,
with Nixon's help, but he was the main guy. And the reason I bring him up is because, as somebody brought up, Trump was legendary, is legendary for changing his mind given the scenario. He was okay with saying, okay, I could change my view on that. I could change my opinion on that. And there's no doubt in my mind, you know, and the reason I bring this up, and I know we're running out of time, but Ariel Sharon, when he gave Gaza back, and his plan basically was, here's Gaza. If you attack us, you're done. But before he could implement that sort of plan and strategy, he had that horrific brain aneurysm, which, so we'll never know. And when people try to bring up Trump and say, when you look at Donald Trump's resume for getting out hostages, when you look at Donald Trump's resume for bringing peace to the world, when you look at his resume for all that he did with foreign policy, Ben, it's impossible. It's extremely unfair to ever say that he started this, or this would have happened under him when we saw all the 180s that he did when it came to national security.
And of course, to say that he started it when it was started long before he came into office, is really comical. And we don't know what he would have done. We don't know what anyone would have done, except I don't think anyone else, except of course Bernie Sanders, an actual communist, in my opinion, an actual card-carrying communist, in my opinion, would have turned our backs on our allies and our own people. Nobody else but Biden would have done that. The disgrace that's going on now.
Well, Hillary did.
That was on 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7 people. This is on thousands, maybe.
Yeah.
If you count the ones who helped us, maybe hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. No, it's you're brilliantly said and 100% right. I want to thank everybody that's been listening to us tonight. We know we had, competition from the man, and so whoever but Ben's the man. I mean, it's Trump. I mean, it's Ben Trump. It's Ben. It's like this. It's Ben, Nixon, Trump.
God
right there. That's the order. Gary Collins said the most brilliant thing he's ever said on the show tonight. It took him about
80 shows.
Wait a minute. I didn't say it was the only brilliant thing you said.
And I have my moments. What's that? A squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
With all due respect, I think it was. If that had been the main thing you said in your whole life, your life would have been worthwhile.
Can we get it then? Can we get someone, Republican candidate, to repeat that? But I want to say one thing before we leave. We need to get back to this. You don't negotiate with terrorists. Walk lightly, carry a big stick. That's what we need to get back to.
I love this, and I'd like to get to something else. A very, very smart friend of mine, extreme genius named Ellis Ratner, quoted to me tonight from Elie Wiesel, a concentration camp survivor, genius writer, philosopher, who said at a certain point when he was in a concentration camp, a death camp, he just said, "Why is this happening?" And that is what we want to know. And if we're going to have a commission, why don't we have a nonprofit, non-governmental, Republican, blue ribbon commission? Why is this happening?
That's brilliantly said and a brilliant way to end. And I just want to say one more thing. Trump wasn't just the best ally, the best friend Israel ever had. He was the best friend. He was the best friend that the Middle East has ever had. Yeah. And it's really important to remember the peace, prosperity, and as Ben always says, progress. And what do you always say? God bless the peacemaker. What's that expression you use?
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God.
And blessed are the peacemakers like Nixon and Trump. And may God have mercy on the souls of people like Biden and Harris and Pelosi, who are trying to destroy peace with their actions. And I really want to thank everybody that's been listening tonight. Gary, again, for your brilliant point.
He's been making many brilliant points, and this is the best one.
But he's always complimentary after the show. Oh, he's like, Gary, so please don't take it. It's like,
I'm not, trust me.
Don't take it as like it looks like you've lost weight, because that means you'd look fat. And I want to thank everybody.
It reminds me that a woman I know, who's a very, very large woman, told me last night she had run 9 miles. If she ran 9 feet, I would be astonished. And yet I love her. She's a wonderful girl.
But okay, I don't want to keep, I just want to, you see, somebody brought up something, and I just want to get into this. I don't put Reagan in the scale of Trump and Nixon when it came to bringing, I think Russia's very different than their work that they did in the Middle East and saving Israel and I understand the Reagan thing, but I don't put him in that same. Remember, we did have Beirut. We did have certain real foreign policy blunders under Reagan in that region.
Well, Iran-Contra was
Iran-Contra. I believe Delta Force went on. The Delta Force had a horrific mission that was unsuccessful. That was Carter. My bad. My apologies. But let's not. I mean, Reagan, we love. He was a great president. But
really love.
But when we're talking about peace in certain regions and brokering deals, Nixon and Trump were the true kingmakers. And I want to thank everybody again for listening to The World According to Ben Stein. You could hear us Saturday nights, Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and any day you like when you download the podcast. simplelifenow.com. Download Gary's podcast, of course. It is an exceptional podcast. Rob Kendall will be on this week, I think.
No, he was on. He was already on.
You posted it? Then I missed that episode. I will be listening to it.
It's great.
And of course, you can find Ben at spectator.org, also oftentimes Newsmax. And you could read his column once a month on Newsmax. It's a brilliant comment. It's a brilliant article. And if you throw a few shekels, spectator.org, American Spectator, one of the oldest and greatest newspapers and news sites, online papers in America. Ben Stein, please take us out.
Oh, I wish I were in the land of cotton. Old times there are not forgotten. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. Then I wish I was in Dixie. Away, away, in Dixieland. I'll take my stand to live and die in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. And I'd like to tell you something. My wifey, the saint of saints, the best person that ever lived, is a Southerner, and she was sleeping the other day, and I put up Dixie on my phone, and in her sleep, she sang along with it, and she's a goddess.
Stone cold. Have a great night, everybody. Be safe, and let's pray for the pray for everybody in Afghanistan. They need prayer and action, and let's pray for them. We will see you Tuesday night. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.